Local Edge, powered by Ad Canada Media.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Local Edge, where we dive deep into the heart of local Canadian markets and the people who energize them. I'm your host, Shawna Randolph, and today we're talking about a significant move by the Ontario government that's set to inject a new life in local media. The recent directive mandates that 4 major provincial agencies dedicate at least 25% of their advertising spend to local publishers in that province. And the Ontario government itself is now committed to spending a quarter of its own advertising budget with Ontario-based news organizations. What does this mean not only in Ontario, but within other provinces going forward? We're going to get into all of that. It's going to be a great discussion. So sit back, relax, and enjoy our show. Joining us is Stewart Grant, Treasurer of the Ontario Community Newspapers Association and owner of 7 newspapers and 3 farm publications in Midwestern Ontario. Stewart's extensive experience in managing a broad spectrum of local publications gives him a unique perspective on the changes ahead. And we also have Alicia McCutcheon. She is publisher of the Manitoulin Expositor. And growing up in the newspaper business and armed with an honors BA in communications and a graduate certificate in journalism, Alicia brings a wealth of knowledge and a keen eye for the social dimensions of news. So nice to have you here, you two. And let's start with you, Stewart. Please provide some insight into what you think led to this decision by the Ontario government to support local publishers.
Well, number one, I think this is just good business. It's amazing how we got to this point where we have to mandate that 25% of advertising from these government entities go to local publishers, because there was a recent study done last year said 85% of people still read local news. So people are absorbing what we're putting out there, and this is also the most trusted medium according to surveys is local journalism. So it's only right that governments who need to get their message out to the people do so using local journalism. It also sets a great example that they believe in what we're doing. They appreciate the importance of journalism in our democracy, and they're supporting us now as they always should have.
And this was a long time coming, wasn't it, Stewart?
Oh, absolutely. I think, obviously, there's been a lot of changes in the media landscape, and perhaps some of the reason for the shift away from print advertising is that, okay, the Facebooks and the Googles have made it easy on marketing people to maybe make a big purchase without having to worry about different sizes of different newspapers and all that. So, maybe that's why they have to mandate it, is because, sometimes we cut corners in our jobs to make things easier. So this is just something that needed to be done.
And of course, not just the mandate, but themselves, government is making a difference in what they're putting into their advertising.
Well, absolutely. Like there's, the Ontario government has been running ads on various initiatives that they're doing, from investing in transportation to EV battery plants and whatnot. And I've seen their ads on television. I've seen their ads online. And I've seen their ads in newspapers. But the ads in the newspapers, that's when you're having that real thoughtful experience where you can look at their ads, study it a little bit longer, and they have very easy URL to look at. And it's like, yeah, what is happening with the 427 extension? And you can click on it, and there's a wealth of information there.
Okay, let's bring Alicia in. From your perspective, how important is this kind of government support to the community of local publishers?
Oh, it's incredibly important. We've been seeing, as we call it, national advertising, in this case, well, provincial, but it falls under the same umbrella, disappear over the years. And as Stewart said, it's just, it's a lot easier to just have a big group buy on social media. But it makes good business sense, because as we all know, newspaper advertising works, plain and simple. And it's nice to, have the province acknowledge that. It's just, we've been asking the various provincial governments for years to bring back the same level of advertising, and maybe we haven't reached that point, but it's a very good start. And as we've said all along, it's just advertising with newspapers works, especially, community newspapers such as Stewart's and mine, who service, small rural northern communities where perhaps access to internet and isn't the greatest. And we service an older, clientele who still read their newspaper and count on us to, give them the information. So I applaud the government indeed for coming to its senses.
Coming to its senses, that's what we're hearing a lot from people. So just to give everyone a perspective of where you're coming from, Little Current, a population there about just 1,600 people. So when you talk about this really making a difference, and you have a very small staff group that you are in charge of there. So what has been your initial observations, the reactions within, your organization? What's the talk there in your community?
Well, just so our office is located in Little Current, but we are on Manitoulin Island. So Manitoulin is, we have a population of about 13,000 people that our newspaper covers. And we're sort of 50-50 split between settler and Indigenous communities. So we're very unique in that regard. So it's been well, our office was certainly overjoyed when we saw these insertion orders come through for certainly, because we heard the promise from Premier Ford, and to see it come to fruition was wonderful. And it's the ads themselves are, they make good sense, like touting the Ontario 511 here in Ontario. There's a service that you can check on road conditions and that sort of thing. Just reminding our readers what all Ontario has to offer, through its various myriad services. So it's been a boon for sure, for us and for the community.
Stewart, again, you're treasurer of the Ontario Community Newspapers Association. How has the news been received among your colleagues in that group?
Well, yeah, I just received our October financials, where we facilitate the advertising for a number of papers across the province, and the revenue for the last month was right back to the previous recent high of March 2022, which was the last month of the federal government's COVID advertising. So it's made a real difference across the board for Ontario newspapers.
And for you, I know your goal at Grant Haven Media has long to restore small town journalism one community at a time. This ensures you continue on par with that, maybe?
Well, it certainly helps. Like I just looked at our numbers before this call, and we are up 6% in revenue since September, directly as a result of this program. So 6% for a small business can be the difference between making money and losing money. So we're not in a high margin business. So this really is very impactful.
Alicia, where do you hope this directive will lead your publications? What changes or improvements do you think may come because of all of this? Examples.
Examples. Well, I certainly hope it continues, and that, like Stewart said, it allows us to continue the good quality journalism that our newspapers, our community newspapers in Ontario bring, because without us, history is just completely lost, in my opinion. So having those extra funds, in our coffers are really important to maintaining journalist staff and continuing to tell those stories of in my case, the people of Manitoulin Island.
Stewart, are we looking at maybe extra reporters, better coverage, effect on overall viability? What's your perspective there and how you see this affecting the landscape overall there in Ontario?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, certainly we reinvest in our organization as much as we can. We've grown from one paper 5 years ago to 10 papers now, and this will help us continue to grow. And I think that across the board, the province of Ontario showing this confidence in local journalism is so important. There's this misconception out there, I think, in certain areas that newspapers are dying, but I think Alicia would agree that, in many communities across Canada, local readership is still very, very high. People continue to want local news. And if governments demonstrate their commitment, perhaps that will open the door for others to come into the industry and fill some of these news deserts that are out there.
You use that term news deserts. Alicia, do you want to weigh in on that?
I'm actually not a fan of that term. Okay. For various reasons. I think that, the term news deserts gets used a lot, but by sort of people who don't really get the landscape of community news. And so there are many publications across Canada that are often overlooked by the people who have coined such phrases. So
fair, yeah. But I'll pick a different word. Because you're right. Some of the places we've gone into, there are still newspapers there, but they are often recycled material from other communities and not necessarily local news.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure.
But bottom line, Alicia, you're definitely feeling that this is an opportunity for others in other communities to just take the rein and get over a fear that they may have about starting up their own paper. Of course, probably not in your area, right? You don't want that.
No, of course not. But actually, it's a good news story is tomorrow. There's a local high school here on the largest First Nation Wequemcoon unceded territory, and they have decided to start a newspaper and go the traditional newsprint style. And so I'm honored to go tomorrow and teach them a bit about pagination. So I'll start slowly with my local high school and hope that that trend continues and local journalism continues to thrive, and with support from the Ford government, certainly that's most helpful.
Excellent. Okay, Stewart, let's talk about other provinces, how this may be, affecting others. It's interesting to note that the Manitoba government's recent speech from the throne promises to establish an all-party committee to work to protect local journalism there. And that promise, I have to note, follows the Ontario government's announcement. So bottom line, if there was one thing that you could predict about the impact of this directive on local culture and economy, what would it be?
Yeah, well, hopefully this is something that gets the ball rolling and gets people talking about the importance of local journalism, and hopefully we'll see this occur at other levels of government, from federal government, other provinces, municipal government. This is a place where people should be getting the word out.
Do you predict other provinces will follow suit?
Yeah, I think it just makes sense. Governments, they want to communicate with their people, and this is honestly the best place to do it. To allocate 25% of their advertising budget in the case of Ontario, if anything, it could be higher. That just makes sense.
It's a lot of lobbying, though. Of course, when you're dealing with trying to convince a provincial government to change maybe their tune.
But yeah, like this isn't a case of us asking for a handout. This is our business. This is what we do, is communicate. So that is the beautiful thing about this particular program, is everybody wins. The people are hearing what their government has to say. The government is getting out their message, and local businesses, local jobs are being preserved. Newspapers are so important to a society. So there's just so many wins to this that I think it should continue across the country.
Alicia, what about your thoughts about, the impact of this directive, local culture, the economy, maybe, in your area or abroad?
Oh, I just would like to echo Stewart's comments and that, this certainly isn't a handout at all by any stretch of the imagination. It's again, as I said before, it's just good business sense because, we do what we do best, and that's getting information to the people in a reliable source, which is, we're hearing more and more concerns over, other mediums' credibility. And as Stewart noted also before, that newspapers still remain are top of mind for people when they think of, trusted sources. So it's just, it goes hand in hand. Your local government wants to get the word out, while newspapers just make sense.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. We've been saying it's not a handout, but it's basically you have at least a consistent revenue stream there of advertising from these agencies and whatnot, the government itself. But Stewart, ultimately, what further actions or commitments would you like to see from governments with this initiative in particular?
I think number one, I just like it to be a long-term commitment. Hopefully this isn't just something that happens before election time, but hopefully it just begins, just the way that we do things, like for years and decades, governments have worked with newspapers to communicate. And somewhere along the line that went off the rails, and it's great to have it back.
Alicia, anything from you there?
Oh, just I absolutely agree, and I hope the trend continues, and it would be wonderful to see the federal government following suit too. So, fingers crossed.
I think that's what we're hearing across the country as well. Any last words on anything I haven't touched on, the two of you?
No, thank you very much for your time today to discuss this.
All right. So we want to help people get in contact with both of you. So Stewart's publications, visit granthaven.com, correct, Stewart?
Correct. You can read all of our 10 newspapers at granthaven.com with no paywall.
And Alicia, you?
Manitoulin.com.
All right, as simple as that, manitoulin.com. All right, thank you too. I really appreciate your time for our viewers, our listeners here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, you too. That's, again, Stewart Grant, Treasurer of the Ontario Community Newspapers Association, and Alicia McCutcheon. She is publisher of the Manitoulin Expositor. And be sure to catch our next episode where we're going to talk to Lori Henson. She's of Rebuild Local News in Indiana. She's going to have similar initiatives to talk about that are going towards saving local media in the United States. So that's episode number 8. And that's it for episode 7. Thank you so much for spending time with us here on Local Edge, everybody. Again, I'm your host, Shawna Randolph. And to stay in tune with us and to access all of our episodes, just be sure to subscribe to the Local Edge podcast. It's on any of the major platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, whatever you use. And also don't forget to check out our website, adcanadamedia.ca. Thanks for joining us here on Local Edge, everybody. See you next time.
This series is proudly produced by the team at Road 55. Road 55 creates content that connects. For more information, visit our website at road55.ca.